So this is where we left off in the first video. I'm sorry, I only can record in 15-minute chunks. So this is where we left off. And we have one more thing that we're going to be covering today for topic 3, section 1. And that is just looking at the end behavior. So like whether the graph is got both arrows going up, or if it has both going down, or if one's going up and one's going down, and vice versa. So all of these are what we're going to be looking at, and we can actually see it just by looking at the lead coefficient and the degree of the polynomial. So we're going to, again, only look at the leading coefficient or the leading term. So we're going to be looking at the leading term. Okay, and we're going to be looking at, is the degree, the exponent, odd, or is it even? And then we're also going to look at the a value and whether the a value is less than 0, greater than 0, and again, a is greater than 0, less than 0. Okay, so that's what we're going to be looking at. And when we look at these, we're going to fill in the boxes, and it's going to tell us which way the arrows go at the end. So I just want to emphasize that it's only the end. It does not tell us anything about the middle. So only tells us the ends. So let's take a look. So what it means is that we can actually just start by writing x, arrow negative infinity, and x positive infinity. So what does this mean? This is saying as x approaches negative infinity. So I'm going to write that down so that you can see it in words. So again, there's written in words. So as x approaches negative infinity, and then we're going to do a comma, and we're going to say y approaches negative infinity. So as we go more to the left of the graph, the end behavior is going to be going, whoops, down, not up, because it's going negative. So I'm going to draw a graph just to help us visualize it. So here is a graph, just a plain one. As x approaches negative infinity, so this side of the graph, our y value approaches negative infinity as well. So it's telling us that this part of the graph goes down. Okay, and then the other part, so as we go more to the right, y approaches positive infinity. So this is something that you're just going to want on your notes page, or come up with like a little rhyme to help you remember. But if n is odd and greater than 1 or 0 for a, your end behavior is going to have a down arrow to the left and an up arrow to the right. Again, we don't know anything about the middle of this graph. We don't know what it looks like in between. We just know that it goes down on the left-hand side and up on the right-hand side. And then an example of what I mean by this, if we had 2x to the 5th. N is odd, because 5 is odd, and then a is greater than 0. So this function, if we graphed it, the left-hand side would be facing down or going down, and the right-hand side of the graph would be going up. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do the rest of them. So for this one, we'll do the odds first. So as x approaches negative infinity, y approaches. As x approaches positive infinity, y approaches. So you can start by writing this on all of them, and then you just kind of fill in. So when you have odd number again, so again, I'll write one down. So if we have x to the fifth, again, we'll just use the same exponent. And a is less than 0 this time, so let's do a -2 because then that's less than. So our n is the 5 and our a is that -2. When we have an odd degree and a negative leading coefficient, we are going to have it go positive and then negative. So this one's going to be opposite of what we just saw up above. We're going to have the left hand side be going up and the right side be going down. And again, we don't know anything about the middle of the function. And then the next one, now we have even. So now we have even integers for our degree, but it's going to be the same format. As x approaches negative infinity, y is going to approach, and in this case, it's going to be positive infinity. And then as x approaches positive infinity, y is also going to approach positive infinity. So what I mean by that is if you were to graph it, both ends of your polynomial function would be going up. Okay, again, we don't know anything about that middle, just that both ends are going to be up. And then it's just like we saw from here to here, it was opposite, it's going to be opposite here as well. So as x approaches negative infinity, y is going to approach negative infinity. As x approaches positive infinity, y is going to approach negative infinity again. So here's our graph. And then both arrows are going to be going down. And we don't know the middle. So I will be uploading some helpful things to remind you of this. And but again, the main thing to take away is that the y's are what's changing. So the x is just saying as negative infinity, as you go more to the left, your y is getting bigger. As you go to the right, your y is getting smaller. As you go to the left, your y is getting smaller. As you go to the right, your y is going smaller. So that's just a little helpful thing to know when you're going to graph in a little bit later of this chapter. So let's take a look at an example here. So this example here is combining what we did in the first video and in this video that we just did. So we can see the end behavior. That's what we're adding. Everything else we covered in the first video. So it first wants us to write it in standard form. And since we already went over the first 4 things, I would go ahead and pause the video and try all of this on your own. All right, so for standard form, we're going to first identify all the degrees. So this one would be 1, this one is 2, this one is 0, and this one is 4. So this is going to be first 3x to the 4th, and then the next smallest one would be x to the 2nd, and then 6x, and then plus 1. So now we're looking at, to classify it, how many terms we have. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 terms. And then we have a 4th degree. So it is going to be the quartic polynomial with 4 terms. The leading coefficient is that number in the front, remember, so that's -3. And the degree of the polynomial is the biggest one, which in this case is 4. So the leading coefficient is our a value. So just gonna write it here. So the leading coefficient is what we would look for a, and then the degree is our n. So we have an even, and then a is less than 0. So now we go back to our table. So we said n is even, so we're going to be looking at this side, this column here. And then a is less than 0, which is right here. So both our arrows are going down, so they'll both be going towards -infinity. So I'm literally just going to take this right here, and I'm going to copy it and put it on the other one. Okay, so let's go ahead and go here and let's write it down. So as we go to the negative side of the x, we also go negative on the y, and then as we go positive, we go negative again. So again, we don't know anything about the middle, we just know that both arrows on both sides are going down. So go ahead and pause and then check your answers with the next one. All right, so here's our answers. So we have a 0, 2, and a 1 for our degrees. So 2, then 1, then 0 for standard form. The second degree makes it a quadratic, and there's 3 terms, so it's a trinomial, so it's a quadratic trinomial. The leading coefficient is -6. The degree is 2, which is even and less than 0. So again, we have the same as what we wrote over here. Both arrows are going to be down. This one, we do know the middle just because it's a quadratic. We know that quadratics are always the U shape, and this one is going down. So there's that one. That's it for section 1. I look forward to starting this next chapter with you all next week.